Apollo is probably best known for his association with the sun, which is actually a more modern interpretation. It used to be Helios, and the same actually goes for the moon as well. So in the past, when we used to talk about the moon, we would talk about Selene and not Artemis. However, it's actually really interesting that Artemis became the goddess of the moon and Apollo the god of the sun, because they are also twins. And the fact that they are twins actually leaves room for some interesting interpretation, not only showcasing how closely connected the sun and the moon are, but also how they represent two sides of the same coin. While Artemis embraced nature, wildness, and became protector of the forest and the animals, Apollo was drawn to the arts, philosophy, and rationality. Artemis is about instinct and intuition, while Apollo is about rationality and logic. You can also look at it from a perspective of light and dark not in the sense of negative or destruction, but just inside and outside would be another description, or feminine and masculine energy. So for this video, I really want to showcase the importance of Apollo's association with the sun and what it means for us. Hello and welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chada. In this series, we're diving into the archetypes of Greek mythology as a tool for self-discovery. So if you haven't watched the introduction video yet, I'm going to link it up above and down below so you get a better understanding on what this series is about. I'm also going to put the link of the playlist of the other gods in the description box down as well, so you can watch those too. One of the central myths of Apollo is his victory over the Python, a monstrous serpent guarding the Oracle of Delphi. After slaying the Python, Apollo claimed the Oracle and established himself as the god of knowledge and prophecy. Delphi was actually considered the center of the world according to Greeks back then, which symbolically also refers to the fact that the sun is the center of our solar system, showcasing the importance of Apollo. Just like the sun is the center of the solar system, Apollo is our own center, our purpose, our mission, something that we drive for. It's about understanding what our own essence is about. His triumph over the Python actually represents humans' ability to overcome primal fears, chaos, and confusion through discipline and logic. Apollo's association with prophecy and healing, because he was also often associated with healing, reflects the human drive to understand the future, but also use knowledge to foster well-being. There is also another more modern interpretation on how we can look at Apollo's triumph over the Python, and it actually also comes more from the feminist perspective, but it is said that the Python represents the feminine energy while Apollo represents the masculine energy. So it's also kind of representative not only in the masculine, like the patriarchal social structure that we have constructed and built, but also the dominance of the intellectual over the instinctual part. Said differently, in a certain sense, it represents humans' evolution and suppressing our inner knowing, our instincts, in favor of logic. So as amazing as Apollo is, and probably one of the main reasons that we have come as far as we have as humanity, because we were able to structure, think, and logically understand them, it's also important that we don't forget Artemis, the moon goddess, who's really about that primal instinctual part of ourselves that connects us to a deeper truth of the world. If we think of it again in terms of feminine and masculine energy, the masculine is about the doing, about the structuring, while the feminine is free-flowing. There is no logic behind it. So a balanced Apollo represents our ability to shine light onto things, to understand them logically. He is also about self-expression and shining our own lights, our desire to understand ourselves and the world and making sense of the chaos that surrounds us all the time, but also about finding purpose. As I said prior, our ability to shine our own light. Where can we bring something to the world? An overactive Apollo can show himself in being overly analytical, where we dismiss everything in favor of logic, where the only truth is something that we can also prove. So only the things that we can shine light onto something and we can explain is something that we are willing to accept and basically dismiss anything else, which can lead to inflexibility because we have become so rigid on only believing in what we see. A suppressed Apollo on the other side can lead to a lack of direction, not having a real purpose, difficulties in expressing ourselves and our own inner truth. It can also be about shying away from our own inner lights when we are not showing ourselves, and it doesn't necessarily have to be because we get critics from the outside, but more so because we don't believe in ourselves, we don't believe in our own light, we don't have the confidence to show our inner light. It can also show as a lack of clarity. Again, I want you to think about the principle of light. So you have no clue where you're going or what you're doing because you're lacking the clarity, the direction on where to go. So what to do when Apollo is out of balance? It's actually quite simple. The easiest way I've mentioned it a few times is actually thinking of Artemis. Are you in balance when it comes to Apollo and Artemis? Are you embracing both parts? If Apollo is overactive, you need a little more Artemis to balance it out. If Apollo, on the other hand, is underactive, there's a likelihood that Artemis is overactive. So it's about strengthening Apollo again to create that balance. So when he's overactive and it's about strengthening Artemis a little more, it's about trusting your inner voice, listening to that inner voice and going with it, even though you have no rational explanation for it. It's that really that feeling of, I just know it's right, even though I have no explanation for it. A great way can also be to build faith and trust. So for some people, this can be a religious practice. For others, it can be the ability to surrender and just to reflect back on your life, on all those times where you had no logical explanation, but it just worked out, where you were guided in ways that you could have not planned or foreseen. When he is suppressed on the other side and there are other gods or archetypes that are taking over, for example Artemis itself, where we just do whatever we feel like, or it could be Aries, where our emotions are getting the best of us. It's about learning to take control over that. Just as Apollo triumphed over the Python representing the chaos, it's about our ability to triumph over the more primal aspects of ourselves. And what is really important, it's not about suppressing or controlling or containing them. It's about giving them direction. Just as I talked about it in the Hermes video, it's all about understanding to channel that energy consciously instead of allowing it to run wild. Another way that I also like to think of in Apollo is in terms of skill sets. What are you good at? Because usually where you are good at is also where you shine your light. So if you want to strengthen that sense of self, of purpose and direction, it can be really helpful to understand what your strengths are, where is your own light, and how can you develop those skills further. And once you do that, this is also where you will gain recognition. And when I think of it in terms of what are you good at, it might not always be the most obvious one. So even though I have like a lot of passions, there are a lot of things that where I was like, I don't want to do that. I love it, I know I'm good at, but I don't want to do it. So here Hermes can be very helpful in terms of, okay, you know what you are good at. Think of it more creatively, like how can you use what you are good at in different ways, and one of those different ways lights you up, and eventually you will come to your own specific purpose, like your own way of shining light into the world. To wrap it up, Apollo is not the emotional driver inside of us, but more like an inner sense of purpose. It's our desire to understand things inside and outside of us, but also our ability to shine light onto the world and bring something to the world. Just think about the sun, how it makes grow everything. If you really learn to tap into that energy of your own light, things around you will start to grow as well, because you are using your solar energy, if that's what we want to call it, to let something else grow. It can be like becoming a farmer where you allow things to physically grow, but it can also be in terms of becoming a mother where you nurture your child and it's just your inner light. But also if you do something that is more out of the spotlight, so to speak. For example, if you are an accountant but you're really good at this, you also allow things to grow because you're taking away tasks that other people might not be good at and allow them to grow because they don't have to do that anymore. So I don't want you to necessarily think the energy of Apollo of having to be a star quality of being on a stage. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It just really is about shining your own light, whatever that looks like for you. This is basically it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think and what you got away from the video. Would love to know. Otherwise, I already mentioned a few gods that might be helpful in combination with Apollo. It could be Artemis or Hermes or even Aries if you feel like your emotions are out of control. So just scroll through the playlist, maybe you find something that interests you. Otherwise, thank you so much again, and I'll see you in the next one.